Hey, welcome back to my channel. My name's Christina Kent and I'm an oil painter based out of San Francisco. And today I'm going to walk you through how you can do value studies in paint in your sketchbook to make better studio paintings. And as a quick note, this video isn't sponsored by anyone, but if you'd like to support my work, you can purchase my paintings on my website below, you can join my Patreon, or you can share this video with a friend. All these things really help my channel. Okay, let's get to painting. So the reference we're going to be painting from today is this photo I took of some buildings in San Francisco, and I thought that this would be a really good practice image because it was an image taken on a really bright day, so we have really strong shadows, and it's relatively simple. It's just one building with some windows and doors, and so we can easily simplify that, there aren't too many things going on, so I think it's good for this exercise. And for the exercise today, we're going to be doing a 3-value study. This is sort of similar to notan. If you've done those before, if you've seen my previous video on notans, if you haven't, go check that out. That's where we do a painting with just 2 values, white and black. And in this study, we're going to take that to the next step where we're going to, rather than just using black and white, we're actually going to use 3 values. We'll have black, white, and gray. And so the idea is to take our reference image and then simplify it into just these 3 values. So we're ignoring color here, and we're just focusing on a light, a dark, and a mid-tone. And this is a really good exercise when you're trying to simplify an image and just study composition and its overall design. And I find that doing these value studies can really help clarify my planning for a painting and my thoughts about how the final painting are going to look. A lot of those things can become clear when I do these value studies. I think it's a great way to study composition and to understand, just the overall design of the painting. So here, the way that I start out the value study is I start by establishing where the darkest darks are and painting those in. And one thing that I'll note here is in this exercise, you're not going to be able to paint everything and all the details and all the nuances. We're simplifying the image into just 3 values, so we're going to be losing a lot of information, and that means that we have to make a lot of decisions. So you can see here, as I'm putting in the really dark colors, I'm just deciding that all of the parts of the building in shadow are going to be grouped into the dark shape. I am ignoring the details of the buildings and the little decorations on the facade that are in shadow, and I'm just grouping all of those into a dark shape. So I'm making a lot of simplifications here, and that's kind of the point. There's so much complexity in the world around us and in any reference image that we have, and as painters, I think one of the things that we can do is we can learn to simplify all of these details to make a bigger statement about what's going on in the image. So once I've laid in where all of the darks are going, then I go in with my midtone, and here I mostly have just assigned the sky and parts of the buildings to be in this midtone shade. So I kept that one pretty simple, and then I moved on to putting in the highlights. And I think this also, there's just a lot of subjectivity that happens when we're doing these value studies. I could have made the decision that the sky and the building, both of those would be the lightest lights. And then I could have explored more of the nuance in the shadow part. So rather than having the shadow be all black, I could have part of the shadow be gray and part of the shadow be the darker black if I wanted to go more into those details. It's really just a matter of what we're interested in the image. And for me, I like the idea of keeping all of the dark shadows massed in together and then having the sky be this nice gray color. And then that gave me room for the highlights that are the parts of the building in light and also the top of the facade there. I like the idea of those little highlights of that detail of the facade really standing out. So, like I said, there's a lot of different ways to do these value studies, and there's no right or wrong way. And I would even recommend, if you're doing a value study like this, you could take the same image and then try to do several different value studies of it, making different decisions on how you group the lights and darks. And oftentimes when you're doing value studies, it might be hard to tell how you should group different values with each other. Because sometimes, nothing is black, white, or gray. Everything is in kind of these midtones. And so it can sometimes go either way. Sometimes we're not sure if something should be grouped into white or gray or black. And one of the things that helps me here is really squinting my eyes a lot. I find as we squint, it's easier to try to group the different shapes together. It doesn't always work, and sometimes you still have to try out different things and see what works, but squinting is really helpful. For example, the part of the bay window that was starting to curve into the shadow, I wasn't sure if I should make that gray or black. And I tried gray at first, but then the more I squinted at the image, I realized that as I was squinting, it kind of just merged into the rest of the shadow mass. So I decided to make it just black instead. And you'll notice I'm also simplifying a lot of the details here, so I'm not going through all of the details on the windows or the parklet that was out in front of the building. I'm just keeping all of that relatively simple, adding a little bit of detail here and there. But really the study, for me, I find it most helpful to focus on the bigger shapes that are in the image. I think that's what is really going to help me understand the composition of the image. And then when I go in to make a studio painting, then I can get into those finer details. I'm also not worrying about getting the drawing exactly right. I'm trying to be accurate overall, but really focusing more on the relationships between the shapes rather than making sure that all the proportions are exactly correct. So here's the final result. You can see it's very simplified, but it gives us the overall idea of the composition of the image. And I really like how we're getting a super strong contrast between the parts of the building in shadow and the parts of the building in light. I think it's giving me kind of the feeling of a really bright sunny day, and it's very dramatic. But of course, if I was painting this, if I turn this into a larger painting in color, I would explore more of the nuances within those shadow shapes because they are very dark and dramatic. So yeah, I would add more detail and explore more of the nuances there. And like I said, I could do this value study on another day and make different decisions, and it would result in a different image. So I always suggest to do a lot of these value studies and do them often and see what sort of designs are most appealing to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I would love to hear what you thought of this video in the comments below. Did you find it helpful? Have you done value studies yourself in the past, and what did you think of them? And as always, a huge shout out to my supporters on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for supporting this channel and making these videos happen. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.